طيب السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وأرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه وأدخلنا برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين آمين يا رب العالمين. So welcome everybody. I think we're on day 4 for Fiqh of Salah. And if you remember last time, we started Shurut al-Salah, conditions of the validity of as-Salah. And we covered a few of them. So we're going to start with some review. First of all, what is a shart? I don't have candy, but I know you guys don't need candy. What is a shart? We're talking about shurut here. Shurut صحة الصلاة. نعم تفضل. So the shart, a shart is a condition. But give me some information about a shart in the fiqh sense, in the fiqh books. More like a definition. You don't have to give me a technical, but what is a shart like? Jamil, a shart is something that has to be done before, and it has to continue throughout the whole ibadah. Tamam. So you were going to give me an example, which was? What was the example you were going to give me? Yeah, so tahara, for example, it has to be done before salah. You can't do it like in the middle of maghrib. And it has to be there the whole time. If you get to the third rak'ah and you lose your tahara, خلاص, the salah is gone. تمام. جميل. هذا هو الشرط. ممتاز. So shart is a condition. Shart is a condition. نعم. And we said how many conditions for the validity of the prayer? كم؟ تفضل.
There are 6. First one is
إن شاء الله. بسم الله. So one is tahara. Second one is?
the time of the salah.
The entrance, yeah, good. The entry of the time of the prayer, na'am. So the third one, give me the third one.
Covering of the awrah.
Yes, covering the awrah. So those are the 3 that we covered last time, mashallah. Do you know the other 3 or? We're going to cover them today, but I did mention the 6. Facing the qibla. Niyyah. And something to do with tahara. Something to do with, yes, avoiding the النجاسة الغير معفو عنها. ممتاز, أحسنت. You deserve like 5 candies, mashallah. I owe you candy. طيب. Jamil, so we said, what are the first 3? He answered that one. When does the time of dhuhr begin? Who remembers? Don't tell me 122. How do we know? تفضل.
Positioning of the sun when it's at its highest.
When it's at highest, and then what?
The shadow is straight.
But is it when it's at its highest exactly, or just when it starts to go over to the?
Just when it starts.
Yeah. So as soon as it goes to the west, like a little bit, now it's dhuhr time.
Just past the
Yeah, just past the meridian. Yeah. So when it's on the top, okay, and it just tilts a bit, تزول هذا الزوال. يعني this is وقت الظهر. ممتاز. طيب. Which 2 prayers have a time of necessity? We mentioned 2 salawat that they have a time of darura that you should pray before that. نعم. عصر العشاء. أحسنتم. عصر العشاء. ممتاز. العصر والعشاء. ممتاز. If a person says takbiratul ihram. Takbiratul ihram is when you say Allahu Akbar. We're going to do sifat al-salah next week inshallah. If a person says takbiratul ihram and the time for the next prayer enters, did he pray his prayer on time? Yes, he did. Naam, ahsantum. Because we said the minimum he needs to do takbirat al-ihram. Do missed prayers have to be prayed in order? Yes, we said the asl is in order. And we said exception, مثلا if there's no time and you have to pray the one for that time. Yeah, pray that one. طيب, Jamil. How many types of awrah are there? We mentioned. Are you saying 2? Peace? Huh? Okay, there's minor, major, but we mentioned the Hanabila, they split them to 3 groups. Yeah, 3, right? We said 3. We said the first one is the male and the young lady, right? And then he said boys under 10, basically. So the first one, the awrah is from the knees, from the navel down to the knees, okay? And then the second group, which is like the young boy, right? They said just the private parts. And then he said the third type is the woman, and all of that is the awra. Now it's important to mention this is the awra, like, but the major, like this is like the major awra, right? But when you pray in salah, طبعا the woman, all of her is awra, she'll cover herself, yes. But what about the male? Should he pray like, يعني in shorts, no shirt? ما رأيكم? We didn't go into that. No, he has to cover, and we have hadith about covering the shoulders. يعني to cover أحد عاتقيه, يعني his shoulders. There's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and so he should be covering that. Obviously, that's better, and to be dressed properly. Like when we're saying about like the minimum, and that's like the major awra. Do you have to repeat your prayer if your awra is exposed during prayer? This happens all the time. What happens? What happens? The water tastes better with your right. What happens? Mm-hmm. Your salah doesn't count. So okay, and something else. So if something not too major, not something fahish, something extreme, something small is covered from your awra, for a short time cover it, no problem. For a long time you don't care, you don't even know what's happening, you're somewhere else, then your salah is broken. And if it's something extreme, like we said, like the example of someone in Umrah and his whole izar falls off, okay, his whole awra is exposed, then even for a second, then his salah would be, and maybe the salah of the others, I'm not sure, yani, but his salah would definitely be, yani, it's always like, if you've done Umrah the first time, you're always scared for the males, yani. Like if you do it the right way, it's, yani, I've never seen it happen in my life. I've never experienced, alhamdulillah, may Allah, nobody, yani, inshallah, nobody experienced that.
So, just a follow-up question for people who are wearing ihram, and like, let's say they're in Masjid al-Nabawi or the Haram, and they're like, in the middle of Salah, in Jama'at, their awra falls off. What do you do then? You're like surrounded by everyone, you can't leave. Like, what would you do in that situation?
No. So if you're like, if it comes off, you're talking about the top or bottom? I mean, either one of them, you pick it up and you cover yourself, obviously.
Right, but your salah is broken. Like, what do you do?
Yeah, you just go and make wudu.
I mean, in the middle of Salah?
Yeah, so you understand that in salah, you can walk in front of anybody. So as long as the imam has a sutra and he's good. If you ever see the videos of the Haramain, people are walking just down the aisles, adi. So technically, you can walk down the aisle in front of everybody. ما في مشكلة. You're not breaking anybody's salah, because their sutra is the imam. He's the guy we have to worry about. You know, if he's messing around, then it messes everybody's salah. Okay, but as long as he has something in front of him, then people can actually walk in front if they need to. So basically, if your awra is exposed, and you or maybe you remembered you broke you don't have wudu. This happens all the time. You're just praying and you're like, and then you remember, oh my God, I didn't make wudu, and so you just leave the salah. They will close the gap. You go make wudu. Over there, good luck. You have to find a bathroom somewhere. It's far, and then you come back. Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, we're gonna have Q&As. Don't worry. Yeah. If you're just wearing the bottom. Is your salah valid? From the hadith, we get there's an understanding of amr, of a command from the Prophet ﷺ that you should cover your shoulders in salah. There's a hadith, I don't have it with me like verbatim, but he says they should at least covering one of his shoulders, one of his two shoulders. يعني إحدى عاتقيه, يعني one of his shoulders should be covered when he's praying. Unless someone doesn't have anything. That's someone exception. No. طيب جميل, let's start. Let's begin. So انتهينا من الأول والثاني والثالث. We get to, having ritual purity was the first condition. Remember we have 6, and I keep listing them so you memorize them. Okay, mashallah, Tashmir, you already memorized them almost. So having ritual purity, at-tahara, the time of prayer enters, covering your awra. Now we go to number 4, avoiding inexcusable filth on the body, clothes or place. So avoiding filth, najasa, avoiding najasa. And we mentioned here inexcusable because they are excusable. There are najasat ma'foon anha. There are najasat ma'foon anha, يعني it's excused. And there's najasat غير معفو عنها. Okay? And those are the ones we have to avoid. طيب, so he says here, let's read. يقول الرابع اجتناب نجاسة عفوا اجتناب نجاسات غير معفو عنها في بدن وثوب وبقعة مع القدرة. So he says اجتناب يعني staying away, avoiding, okay, the najasat, the impurities, okay, that are not excusable, غير معفو عنها في بدن, in the body, والثوب, in the thobe that you're wearing, the clothes, and the place. So provided you have the ability to abstain, right? And we said that the person who has no control of this, okay, then he's not blamed for that. We gave some examples last time, okay? So the person who has no control over that, and let's say مثلا until you prayed and there was a najasa on your shoe but you never knew, مثلا. If you prayed with your shoe, مثلا, okay? Sometimes we pray with our shoes outside. And you had no idea there was a najasa and you prayed, and you never knew, then you are ma'fu anha. Okay? But if you found out later, then you probably should repeat your salah. We have the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Actually, it's coming right now. Yeah. So speaking about types of najasa that cannot be overlooked. So we have the hadith of Jibreel alayhi salam when he came to the Prophet ﷺ and he was praying. He's the imam. And he took off his shoe in the middle of the salah. Right? And then when they asked him, he said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that Jibreel informed me that there was some kind of filth on my shoes, najasa on your shoes. But this hadith proves two things. You can pray with your shoe, number one, because some people believe, get upset if you pray. Don't pray with your shoes here, but if you're outside, لا بأس, if you pray with your shoe, use your wisdom, use your hikmah. But that's number one. And number two, if you know that there's a najasa, then you remove it. Will you know? I don't know, you might know. Let's say you're praying, tamam, and you have a jacket, and you just change your kid's diaper, and there's some, some najasa on it from changing your kids, and you see it, okay? You smell something, then you see it, you can take it off, throw it on the side, continue your salah. That's kind of what's understood from this, tamam? So he's saying here, there's a difference between forgetting and not knowing. So if it's the latter, it does not invalidate the prayer. Like I said, you come and you don't know that there's a najasa. Okay? Whereas the former, like forgetting, will because you had knowledge of it beforehand. Okay? And the example of the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't know. He entered salah, he had no idea that he had najasa. Jibreel alayhi salam is the one who told him. طيب. Can he just leave? So the imam, no problem, he throws it on the side. Or najasa on himself and he cannot... in this case, well, he can't... Okay, is it on something that he can remove? So if it's on something he can remove, he removes it. If it's on something he cannot remove, then he has to probably leave the salah and have somebody else leave the salah. Right? And he would leave the salah and somebody would step up, or he can bring him up. The imam can go and bring him up to the front. Bring him up to the front, and that's what he would do. But if there's something that he could remove, he will remove it. Yani qiyas on the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Naam. La, continue. And we get this, we have narrations like the killing of Umar radiallahu anhu, and that's what happened. Yani Umar was stabbed, and then somebody stepped up and continued the salah, right? We have narrations like that make it clear that, that's what's supposed to happen. He says here, types that can be overlooked. So he says here, traces of najasa due to istijmar alone are overlooked. We said istijmar, when you go to the bathroom and you do istijmar, you use rocks or toilet paper, and you've used at least 3, you remove the najasa, but there's still something left, right? He said this is overlooked. هذا معفو عنها شرعا يعني. And other things we mentioned in the Fiqh of Tahara, small amount of blood from pure animal, Like I think it was Ayman who asked last time, right? If you have some blood from an animal you're allowed to eat that comes on your thawb, that's okay. هذا معفو عنه. Okay. Yeah. So small amounts of najasat, they are overlooked. No problem about that. طيب. Now he talks about he says ومن جبر from يعني from the word to like join something together. When you have a break or something like that. Remember the jabira we talked about in tahara about tayammum. He says ومن جبر عظمه أو خاطه بنجس وتضرر بقلعه لم يجب ويتيمم إن لم يغطه اللحم. Interesting here. He's talking about if someone used something najis to fix an injury. Let's say you're injured, you were hiking, okay, and you broke a bone or something, and the only thing that you found to fix your bone is something najis. I don't know, you found a bone of a pig or something, and you took it and you tied it or something like that. Tamam. So or مثلا you have a huge cut and you sewed it or stitched it, with something that's not najis, skin of a pig or something. I don't know. I'm just giving examples here. So he says if someone used something najis to fix a broken bone, stitch a wound, and it is harmful to remove it. يعني if you can remove it, you remove it, ما في مشكلة. But it's harmful to remove it. If you remove it, it might harm you. It might risk of I don't know, infection or more injury or and it is not covered by his flesh. What does that mean? يعني let's say you stitch something with something najis and then the flesh covered it. Okay, he's going to say anything inside in our body, it's ma'fu anhu, it's forgiven. Yani anything najis under the skin, in your stomach, there's najasat in your stomach right now. Like right now there's najasat in your stomach, in your body, too much blood. That's ma'fu anhu. Okay, so he's saying, and it's not covered by his flesh, then he does tayammum in addition to wudu. They say you do tayammum here after your wudu or before, but they say after is better. Why? Because you have some najasa there with you. You have some extra najasa, like if you use something najis. He says because najasa inside our bodies are overlooked, that's the flesh part. If he's able to remove it without harm, then he must, right? And we said, if you can remove it, remove it. If you can't, so he can do tayammum before or after wudu, but better to do after. Naam. And then now that he starts talking about the place of prayer. So now we talked about kind of the clothes. What about the place of prayer? Are we allowed to pray anywhere? ما رأيكم? النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم said جعلت الأرض مسجدا وطهورا. No? تفضل. That's it? Only two? Any? So we have the general hadith. One of the things that the Prophet was given as a prophet, which is different than other prophets, was that the whole earth was made a place for prayer. This is from Khasa'is, okay? And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam that جُعْلِيَتِ الْأَرْضُ مَسْجِدًا وَطَهُورًا. The whole earth has been made for him as a masjid. So alhamdulillah, back in the day, the Jews and the Christians, their prayer had to be in the places of prayer, okay? في صوامع and في الكنائس and in those places, in the churches and the synagogues. For the Prophet ﷺ and for his ummah, everywhere, except these places. طيب, what are these places? He's going to mention 8 things, okay? The 8th one is kind of part of all of them, but let's look at them. I thought I had a list, but okay, طيب. Okay. So prayer is not valid if it is done in the following locations. So he says here, ولا تصح بلا عذر في مقبرة وخلاء وحمام وأعطان إبل ومجزرة ومزبلة وقارعة طريق ولا في أسطحتها. So he says here that prayer is not valid. You cannot pray in a graveyard. What makes up a graveyard? He says in the footnotes here, as long as if there's 2 graves, خلاص, now it's a graveyard. Tamam? So if it's just 1 grave, then that's fine. Okay, then that is fine. طيب, if that's fine, how can we pray in the Masjid Nabawi? If you've been to the Masjid Nabawi, or you've been to the Masjid al-Amawi in Syria and other masajid, they have graves in the middle. Yani I've been to Masjid al-Amawi. Anybody here been to Masjid al-Amawi in Syria? One of the oldest masajid. If you go there, there's a shrine, صح? في قبر in the middle of the masjid. The masjid is probably destroyed now. Lakin, I think they say it's Nabi Yahya or something. They say this is the grave of Yahya alayhi salam. And it's in the middle of the masjid, like somewhere in the middle. What about that? And what about the Masjid Nabawi, right? The Umar and the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhum both, they're buried there. So, Naam. And that's one of the issues they had actually when they wanted to expand. They said, how do we expand that way? How are we going to expand that way? Okay. And so they had to. That was a special, that was a darura for them. And so they built around it, right? And so nobody prays there or behind it. But they had to do it to expand. If you've been there, you understand. Because Masjid Nabawi is not like Masjid al-Haram. Masjid al-Haram, the Qibla is one Qibla, the Kaaba. But Masjid Nabawi, the Qibla is one Qibla. It's one direction. So you can only expand that way. You cannot expand this way. So it's problematic. And subhanAllah, more people keep coming. Fadl.
So Masjid Nabawi being an exception for a lot of us brothers, sisters from the subcontinent, from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, whatever. A lot of the da'i were Sufi sheikhs. So when they died, a lot of their maqbara became masajid, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of curious, is that kind of shirk? Because there's a lot of famous masajid.
What is shirk? Which part?
Technically, you're praying to a grave, no?
So if you're in a place where there's a grave, okay, don't pray there behind it.
Well, no, not directly.
But you pray in front, and you'll be fine. There's a grave there, but it's not a maqbara. And that's why the mu'allif, he says here, wal maqbara, it has to be at least two. Tamam? The maqbara, it has to be two or more, right? And that's what would make it like an actual maqbara. Yeah. So three graves or more. And this is straight from the hadith. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam he did straight nahi on praying in the maqabir. طيب. And you can see why. You can probably see the hikmah, right? Because there's dead people there. People will take them as ilah, as a god. And we see it now happening, subhanAllah. People do that and they go and they give offerings and things like that. And it happens everywhere, subhanAllah. Naam.
The masjid is beside the maqbara. It's like there is a graveyard and there is beside the
ما يأثر عليها, no. As long as you're not facing it intentionally and stuff like that. لا عادي في المدينة البقيع where a lot of the Sahaba are there, it's right next to the Masjid Nabawi. فعادي, that's normal, as long as it's not taken as a place of worship. طيب. Then we have the bathroom, right? The toilet. So he says مقبرة وخلاء. Khala in Arabic is the place where you do your business, right? And it could be usually a place outside. So if you have a bathroom in your house, you cannot pray there. If you have somewhere where there's a toilet, you cannot pray there. Okay? Obviously because it's a place of najasa, shayateen. And then he says hammam. طبعا, hammam now is the bathroom, but hammam back then used to be what? The place where people showered. And we still have them in like Turkey and other places. They call them hammam. I think so. And it's a place where people like shower. It's like huge showers and the ulama, they did tahrim on that. Why? They said because the awrat are makshufa in those places. People's awrat are uncovered in these places. They're like saunas and spas and stuff like that. That's what he's talking about. So places where people take showers, the hammam. Place where the camels sleep and eat. Yeah. So this is from a hadith. And Nabi Sallallahu mentioned a'tan al-ibil. This is the places where the camels sleep and eat. The slaughterhouse, al-majzara, right? Not a butcher's store, but the majzara where the actual dhabh, right? There's lots of najasat, blood everywhere. So it's not a place for prayer. Places, mazbala, places where trash is collected. obviously najasat everywhere, and it smells bad, and it's, yeah. And then he says, in a road, right? وقارع الطريق. Obviously, yeah, you should never pray in a road, right? Or in a path where people walk, because you're obstructing people. Mhm. Yeah, especially in our countries, right? In Muslim countries, and so if this is something of a urf, يعني something known amongst the people, and they do it, and they're not sitting there after salah, it should be fine. Now, because it's not a tariq anymore in our countries. Like I've been there, you know. Once the it's Jum'ah prayer. It's usually, yeah. Everybody knows it's not a tariq anymore, and it's known. يعني, unless it's like it's harmful to people, but people know. They walk usually. Aslan they walk there, and they take their carpets and they pray outside. Yeah, that should be fine. Here we wouldn't do it. Back home we have a urf, and here we have a urf. So that's why the urf is so important, right? Al-urf muhakkam, right? So al-urf has a lot of things. Here, forget urf. If the police come and see it, you know, then we're in trouble, right? So I think the police have been here in the last few weeks outside, and I think in other locations at the door of the masjid. If you've prayed in the northeast, I was told they were at the door. And so, aslan we shouldn't do it for fire regulations, etc. We shouldn't. It makes sense, right? That you shouldn't pray in the way. Don't pray in the way. Aslan your khushu won't be proper, and so that's why you shouldn't pray in the. But sidewalks are fine. They say sidewalks are fine. During Jum'ah in the Muslim countries, okay, my understanding, I'm not sure how many non-Muslims are there, but during Jum'ah in Muslim countries, you're either praying Jum'ah or you're sleeping. So nobody like shops in that time. So people will be praying Jum'ah, and people know this is Jum'ah time. This is like nobody's being obstructed. You expect cars to be parked everywhere, and is this the right thing? I'm not saying it's the right thing, but I'm just saying until there's a masjid that's built, or there's other, like when I was in Riyadh, there's so many masajid. Aslan where I was in Riyadh, I think it's the most masjid populated place on earth. There's so many masajid that only a few of them are designated Jum'ah masajid. What does that mean? Jum'ah time, some masajid are not allowed to do Jum'ah because there's too many masajid, so they can fill them up, right? In that case, no, there shouldn't be. There shouldn't be people praying outside. Aslan it's too hot. I don't know how people pray in the summer in those places. But if there's adha, then would be considered. Then he mentions the roofs of the above places. So the roofs of the places still are not considered or allowed to pray them as well. So let's quickly, the graveyard, the bathroom, the places where people shower, the place where the camels sleep and eat, slaughterhouse, places where there's trash, middle of the road, and the roofs of all those places. Think of the places that you frequently go to and just make sure that it's not one of these places. Yes, Salim? What if there's? Trapped in a bathroom. Naam. So we mentioned about the guy who's trapped, like the prisoner or someone who's trapped and there's no other place, there's no other no way for him, then he's muttar, he will pray in that place. So in the time of dire need, you have to do it. Remember we talked about the prisoner? And sometimes even they have najasa on their clothes, and they will still pray. Because in the salata kanat al-mu'minina kitaban mawqut. So the prayer has to be prayed on time. Right, so we're done. Tahara, time of salah, the entry of time of salah, covering the awrah, avoiding najasa. How many left? Two left. Right, bismillah. We'll do them, inshallah, before Isha. The next one is facing the Qibla. Jameel. So you've done all this, you've done your tahara, the time of salah entered, ya salam, you've covered your awrah, good job, you've avoided any najasa, and then you face that way, and then you pray. Tamam? Your salah is not valid. Okay? And we're going to talk about the person who has the ability to find out the Qibla and the person who doesn't have the ability to find the Qibla? And also, are you muqim or are you musafir? Are you local or are you like, traveling? Because it makes a difference, right? If you're local, the masajid have the Qibla, you have a Qibla, it's a known Qibla, right? So there's no need for you to go do ijtihad, to go figure it out, figure the directions out. So let's start. Bismillah. Facing the Qibla. طبعا the one before, we have ayat about the one about, I forgot to mention the ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Prophet sallam, وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ. And make sure that your clothing is pure. We have ayat on Qibla as well. فولي وجهك شطر المسجد الحرام. Yeah. فولي وجهك. Yeah. So face your the Qibla, right? Towards Masjid al-Haram. طيب. So he says here. طيب والخامس. نعم. الخامس. This is the fifth one. استقبال القبلة ولا تصح بدونه إلا لعاجز ومتنفل في سفر مباح. This is the first sentence. He says that استقبال القبلة, facing the Qibla, ولا تصح بدونه إلا لعاجز. So it will not, the salah will not be sahiha, it will not be valid إلا لعاجز. Okay? Al-ajiz is the person who has a reason. He's unable. So he says here, unless you have fear or you're unable. Example, you cannot move due to sickness. مثلا, someone is sick, he cannot move. He's in a hospital bed, he cannot move. He has to pray in that direction, tied up in a direction, away from the Qibla. Prisoner, I gave you guys the story of that a British brother who was on that plane. He has no idea where he is, in which direction, Allah alam. So he just, wherever he faced, and he prayed. So that's the ajiz, okay? Or one who is on permissible travel. He says here, وَمُتَنَفِّلٍ فِي سَفَرٍ مُبَاحٍ. Mutanaffil, number one, he's doing nafil. متنفل في سفر, in travel, and it has to be mubah travel. Because remember we said that travel, if it's haram travel, then you cannot use rukhsa. Yeah? The Hanabali, they say the rukhsa, the concession, is for someone who's doing it for a halal reason. But for someone who is not doing it for a halal reason, he's doing a haram trip, he's going to do something haram, then he loses the rukhsa, he loses the concession. So he says here, one who is on a permissible travel. We have hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when he was traveling, that he would, he would be traveling and he would pray and he would not be on the Qibla all the time. طبعا, if you're going from Mecca to Medina, which way is the Qibla? Huh? It's like south of you, right? So obviously you cannot face the Qibla if you're traveling that way on an animal, right? So you cannot really face the Qibla. So the Qibla is behind you. But the Nabi Sallam would do that trip and he would pray his nawafil. So it has to be, he's saying, for a voluntary prayer. And you're traveling, a permissible travel. You're traveling, it's nafila, okay, and it's a permissible travel. It says here, it is not permissible for a resident to do this. Obviously, because we say it has to be musafir. So if you're a resident, you can't do that. Once he arrives at his destination, he can no longer do this. So if I'm going from Calgary to Edmonton, okay, I can do that. And it's a nafila salah, I can do that, no problem. I don't have to face the Qibla all the time. But as soon as I arrive to my destination, then I lose that rukhsa. It's only done while on the road. Not allowed if traveling for haram reason. We said it has to be for a valid halal reason. If a resident wants to pray a sunnah while sitting in a car, it is fine, provided he must start off facing the Qibla, and then if the car moves to a different direction, then that is okay. Remember we said there's a lot of takhfif on the nawafil, right? So as long as he starts it in the right way, then it should be fine, inshallah. تفضل, yeah. Okay. So the Jama wal Qasr, you're talking about like doing Shortening the prayer. Enjoying it. The chapter is going to come up, inshallah. So we'll cover all of that, inshallah, when it gets there. Now we're just talking about the voluntary prayer that is done while traveling for a permissible travel. Tamam? That one we'll cover, inshallah. Might as well just wait for it. Type. Then he says, if you can see, then he says here, وَيَعْمَلُ وُجُوبًا he says, وَفَرْضُ قَرِيبٍ مِنْهَا إِصَابَةُ عَيْنِهَا وَبَعِيدْ جِهَتِهَا. He's talking about the Qibla. If you are in the location of the Qibla, what's the Qibla? The Kaaba, Mecca, okay? And you can see you have to face it exactly. If the Kaaba is in front of you, you can't be like this. You have to face it exactly. And that's why in the Haram, you see how they pray? It's like they face their whole body around. So he says, if you can see the Kaaba, then direct yourself directly towards it. Otherwise, just face the general direction of it. If you're doing مثلا sa'i, and you know it's like right there, you can kind of face, adi, no problem. If you're in the city of Mecca, and everybody knows Mecca's that way, the Qibla's that way, the Kaaba's that way, then you just face, no problem. And all of us here are like that. Tamam? He says, وَيَعْمَلُ وُجُوبًا بِخَبَرِ ثِقَةٍ بِيَقِينٍ. So now he starts talking about, if you don't know what it is, then you're allowed accepting one Muslim's opinion who is upright, okay? So someone who's ثقة, someone who is trustworthy, you're allowed to take his opinion, okay? So here, either you are someone who knows how to find the direction, okay, and you look for it, or there's someone who's trustworthy, and you come to a place, and there's an imam and you ask him, or a Muslim and you ask him, and he tells you, مثلا, the Qibla is this way, then you should be fine to take his khabar. He says, ثقة وبيقين وبمحاريب المسلمين. بمحاريب. Al-mihrab is it's like this is like a mihrab. I guess you would consider this a mihrab. The mihrab is like the place where you pray, like the closed area where you pray. In Surah Maryam, right? It's mentioned. What's the ayah? من المحراب. ها؟ يلا مراجعة سورة مريم. This is Surah Maryam, right? Yeah? طيب. نعم صح. So the mihrab, so he says here, or if you see a mihrab of the Muslims, then you just pray toward its direction. So I'm going to Edmonton, and I guess I go to the masjid, and they're saying it's this way. خلاص, and you can trust it. Do you have to do some investigation? Get your team together, figure out the direction? No, خلاص. They told you it's this way. It's a masjid. Make sure it's the proper masjid. It's not like a Habashi masjid or something like that. Because there's some other sects that pray like southeast or something, different direction. But just make sure it's not one of those. So it's assumed that the upright Muslims are praying towards it like in a mosque. It's assumed. Someone from Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, nothing shady about that. طيب, if traveling, and then he says here, وَإِنِ اشْتَبَهَتْ في السفر اجتهد عارف بأدلتها وقلد غيره. وقلد غيره عفوا غيره. The غير, that person does the taqleed. So if traveling, he says, if you're traveling, exert effort to find the qibla via signs. ايش يعني via signs? There's ways to find out. The sun is rising, the sun is setting, the shade. What else? Compass will help too, if you have a compass. No, I know the phone, yeah. But we're assuming the phone is broken all the time. The phone breaks, you have a compass. The compass breaks, your prayer mat has a compass sometimes, okay? But we want to know like in dire conditions. Because this is where this is really useful. Your phones all break, and we don't know what to do. I don't know if it's happened to you guys before. It's happened to me before. And everyone panics and which way, and then they start fighting. No, brother, wallah, it's this way. You want to know, so what do I do? And what are we responsible for? So he says here, نعم اجتهد, okay, عارف بأدلتها. There's signs. There's some people know, especially those who travel, do hikes and stuff. They know how to determine the direction. If you have a compass, Jamil, okay. Then he says, if you don't have the tools to do that, then you are muqallid. You are a follower. Okay? Well, muqallid, he follows the one who knows. Tamam? And so as a muqallid, as a follower, blind follower, you follow one who has knowledge and can determine it via signs. Okay. طب can I ask a non-Muslim for the Qibla?
If you know the direction, you can ask him if they have another number.
Yeah, so I mean, you ask a non-Muslim, which way is east? Okay. And he's like, I don't know, could be there, there. So that's useless. But he ask another non-Muslim, yeah, east is this way because McLeod, مش عارف, okay, oh, yeah, a new guy is here. So, yeah, if that's your only choice, you're going to have to use it. Tamam? Yeah, his phone's not broken, yeah? He's got a, nah, he's got a phone that doesn't break, mashallah.
Sometimes we travel from Calgary, say, to London and take about 8 hours. And we pray Zohar, Asr, Maghrib on the way. So,
London, Ontario. You're going to London, Ontario? Where are you going? London, like UK? A plane. Okay. Because I was going to say London, Ontario is longer, right? I think so. No, by car. By car is far. Yeah. 2 days, huh? Type. So, and then you end up praying Dhuhr, Asr. Okay, so what's the question? Yeah, that's why here you're ma'adhur. يعني remember we said that يعني إلا لعذر. What did the mu'allif say? He says يعني إلا لعذر أو إلا لعاجز. You're عاجز. What are you going to do? Until you're in the air. The first priority is إن الصلاة كانت على المؤمنين كتابا موقوتا. To pray it on time. That's the first priority. And so if you're going to be out of time and 4 salawat are going to be gone, then you're عاجز and there's no يعني what are you going to tell the pilot turn so I can pray? You can't do that. Unless you can determine the qibla. Yani when I used Saudi Airlines a couple of times, when they used to have the flight from Riyadh to Toronto, the 14-hour flight, so they had a musalla. So Saudi Airlines had a musalla, and they'll tell you the qibla's that way, مش عارف Makkah's that way, so you can pray عادي. On the plane, yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and that's why, like in the plane, يعني wallahu a'lam, I see that there is some a'dhar here for the people to even pray sitting down. يعني because you cannot pray in the exit, okay? There's no other places, hammam, مش عارف. If you stand, khushu' is gone forever, okay? Okay, unless the lights are off and everyone's sleeping and you can figure it out, مش عارف how. But other than that, or you can take Akhsar Airlines, okay? Or make us an airline that has a prayer space. يعني inshallah you will do a تفضل. Everyone's going to travel now. يلا. طيب. Huh? You're stranded on a 2x2 on an ocean. How would you know the direction? If you're in the ocean, if you wait long enough, you'll see where the sun's coming and falling and setting. Eventually you'll figure it out. Your first salah, you can just do ijtihad. I don't know, your plane came this way, you're like, oh, that was, if you survived, I don't know, inshallah you survived. Okay, and then you figured out. But see, this, نعم? Yeah. What's the degree? 25. 20, yeah, something like 25, 23, 20. طيب, okay, let's get back to business. Because we have to finish before the adhan. So he says, so now if you don't know, you blindly follow. You can also ask a non-Muslim, which way is east? طيب. Here's the problem. If you pray, okay, if you're in that 2x2, Ya Ayman, if you're in that place and you don't exert any effort, and you don't ask, okay, there's nowhere to ask there, but you don't do any effort and you just pray, heck, you're like, whatever, then your salah will not count. Does that make sense? So if I go travel to I don't know, some Kananasis or somewhere, in somewhere far, I go on a hike on a mountain, and I don't bother using the compass, I don't bother asking the other hikers. I saw hikers coming by, my phone broke again, and I saw them coming by, but I'm like, you know what? I don't want to ask them. Let's just pray, whatever. Then your salah wouldn't count. Your salah wouldn't count because you didn't put the effort to figure out your qibla. This is a shart for salah. Tamam? Okay, what if it ends up being in the right direction? مقبولة or غير مقبولة? He says غير مقبولة. Let me read what he says. He says وإن صلى بلا أحدهما مع القدرة. So he says if you pray without doing any of the two, يعني doing ijtihad, you were able to but you didn't. Okay? Or asking someone else or following but you didn't. يعني مع القدرة. قضى مطلقا. And in fiqh when he says مطلقا, whether you were right or wrong. يعني if you ended up being in the right direction, you still repeat the salah because you were negligent of your obligation here. So he says here, if a person prays without exerting effort or without blindly following a person who can determine the qibla via signs, even though the person had the ability to do either of these two things, then the prayer is invalid and needs to be repeated, even if the direction turned out to be the correct one, because he is considered negligent. Someone had his hands up. تفضل. جميل. Yeah, I think the evidence is obvious. We have if you've done Hajj or Umrah, you've been to Masjid al-Qiblatain, right? The story of the Qiblatain, right? When the ayat came down, yeah, فَوَلِّ وَجْهَكَ وَالشَّطْرَ الْمَسْجِدِ الْحَرَامِ. طبعا they were facing Jerusalem. The Qibla of the Muslims used to be Jerusalem. And then the ayat came down, and we have the famous story in Asbab al-Nuzul, and it's mentioned that in one masjid, they were praying towards Jerusalem. And then one guy walked by, and he's like, يعني, what are these guys doing? The ayah came down, but it never reached these guys. So he basically told them, and they changed the qibla in the middle of the salah. So that's plenty of evidence right there that you can't do that when you find out. You can't do that when you find out. And it's happened before. I don't know, you'll be praying, and then somebody comes and just moves you. They just move you. And it happens when you're in the right direction, then they move you to the wrong direction. Then you're like, astaghfirullah. Naam. لا إذا اجتهدت and you've done all you could, then you'll be fine. Yeah, you'll be fine. Because you've done your work. Someone tells you after, you're like, oh, you were supposed to face that direction. خلاص قدر ما شاء فعل. Because you did your فاتقوا الله ما استطعتم. That's like the last that ayah you always go back to it. طيب, alhamdulillah, we've done our tahara. The time of salah has entered. We've covered our awrah. We avoided the najasa. We faced the qibla. What's the last one? Yes, an-niyya. An-niyya is the most important one. And I'm going to tell you up front, the Hanabila are very strict about it. And I'm going to mention a few things because they go into a lot of details about it. And I said we're going to try to follow the book, but sometimes we might just mention some more kind of more clearer opinions that are almost like widespread now. طب let's go about the intention. He says here, السادس النية. Number 6 is النية. فيجب تعيين معينة. Okay? He says here that you have to intend the prayer. So if I want to pray Maghrib, I have to intend Maghrib. I cannot go to Maghrib and just have the niyyah of Asr or something. You have to intend Maghrib, he's saying here. And then he says وَسُنَّ مُقَارَنَتُهَا لِتَكْبِيرَةِ إحرام ولا يضر تقديمها عليها بيسير وشرط نية إمامة واتمام. طيب, let's explain some of that. So he says you must assign a specific intention. do you have to say it? طبعا التلفيظ, this مسألة التلفيظ النية, right? It became famous that this is a Shafi'i opinion. Lakin, if you do some research, and there's a Imam I trust a lot, and he did a lot of research on this one, and he was saying that aslan this is something mafhoom min kalam al-Shafi'i, if that makes sense. Al-Shafi'i rahimahullah, he mentioned some things, and from his words they understood that يعني they misunderstood that he was saying that you should say it in your يعني say it with your mouth. تمام. And so the Shaykh was saying that pretty much all the Imams say you're not supposed to say it. يعني نويت I'm making intention to pray Dhuhr 4 rak'ahs, you know, like some people do that. And some said it's okay to do it in private by yourself quietly, if you feel like that helps you. Tamam? So, but you have to have a niyyah in your heart. طبعا a niyyah is in the heart. Tamam? But why do these people say you say so you remind yourself? Okay? طيب. But طبعا, like if someone walked in right now, like some brothers walked in right now, okay, you guys saw them. صح? طيب. What did you think they were praying? Huh? Maghrib. Anybody disagree? Think it was Fajr? خلاص. So he's saying that the observer knows their niyyah. Okay? يعني why would they themselves not know the niyyah? They're going there. It's like Maghrib time. They're obviously not praying. So the niyyah is pretty obvious. Okay? And yeah, يعني it doesn't have to be that technical. So he says he does not have to intend fard because it's already understood to be that if you're praying, you're intending to pray Maghrib. But he says if he does not specify the specific prayer in his intention, then it's considered a nafilah. If you just get up and go pray without niyyah, then it's considered a nafilah. Now, usually if people drive in their car, okay, and then come here, they're obviously intending that salah. Yani, pretty obvious. And it's hard to find a scenario where someone is just getting up and praying. I don't know, can you guys tell me like a scenario where somebody just gets up and prays and he doesn't know what he's doing? There is a scenario, maybe there's a kid and his dad's like, yalla, let's go pray. Right? And he's like, no, wait, blah, blah, blah. And then he gets up and his dad's praying and the kid's behind and he has no idea. Is it Fajr, Asr, مش عارف, or he just woke up, in Ramadan? It's like, you don't know. It's like, he just woke up, he made wudu. His dad is like, yalla, let's pray. And he doesn't know, is it Asr, Dhuhr, right? Yeah, you can think of another scenario. طبعا you're not supposed to. So no, because Allah, we have an ayah says, لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى. Literally says, don't approach salah while you're intoxicated. Yeah, حتى تعلموا ما تقولون. Yeah. Because they say because the sakran is like غير عاقل. Yeah, so someone who cannot make a niyyah. He cannot make a niyyah. So how can he? Yeah, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's gonna face that way. He's not gonna have tahara. He's not like, خلاص يعني. واضح so far. So then he says you can say it loud enough so only you can hear it, and doing it only with the heart is also allowed. It is recommended to do it loud enough so نعم طيب. Okay. Jamil. Then he says niyyah should be completed before takbirat al-ihram. Yeah, so you should have the niyyah. You shouldn't say Allahu Akbar. And this happens, I'm sure it happened to you. You pray. Like, let's say you're someone who's following the imam. Okay. You pray and then you're like, what am I praying? Dhuhr or Asr. Right? You shouldn't do that. Break your salah, come in, make the niyyah and then takbirat al-ihram again. Okay? Because you should have your niyyah before takbirat al-ihram. Because it's a shart, remember? So shart has to happen before the actual salah. So you have to know you're in that salah. It does happen sometimes. I remember like when we were in the university, we're just used to finish class and head to the prayer space. And sometimes you're thinking, exam, did I get it right? And so you go there, you say Allahu Akbar, you're like, what am I doing? Is it Dhuhr, Asr? It's you have to make sure that your niyyah is there. Okay? No, you don't have to salam. Just walk away. Yeah. He says something interesting here. Okay, what time's Isha? 8:18. What if someone makes niyyah for Isha right now? Is that the right? Does that count?
As long as it's like dark and as long as it's time, it doesn't matter the time. Unless
Because remember we said دخول الوقت. We have to do it in the time of Isha. So he mentions here in the footnotes, you should do it after the time. And he said there shouldn't be a big gap between the niyyah and the salah. So like you shouldn't make niyyah for Isha and pray it at 11 p.m. right now. Just make sure. And remember, like your niyyah will come up when you're going to do it. That it's going to come up. But he just, yani naturally, when you hear the mu'adhin make the adhan, naturally you're going to get up and go there and you're going to be like, this is Isha. Duh, yani we know that's Isha. Okay? You can make the iqama, ما في مشكلة. Yeah. But we usually follow like if you know if the iqama is 8:50, we'll make the iqama 8:50. Can you do iqama right after adhan? ما في مشكلة, no problem. Yeah. Yeah, no problem with that. نعم تفضل. This is what's coming now, and this is one of the problematic masail about the imam and the ma'moom. Because like a lot of the madhab, they put all the weight on the imam. Whatever the imam does, everybody has to, it's going to count for the ma'moom as well. So he says here, the Hanabila, they say you should make a niyyah also that if you're a follower or so you're imam or ma'moom. Right? And this could be problematic because can someone who's, and if someone joins behind you, can you change in the middle of the salah? Right? Like if you're behind the imam, or you came late and you prayed behind. Now wait, you're praying behind him. Your intention is to be, right? Because if you join the salah now, like if someone leads the salah now, you join as a ma'moom. Ma'moom means follower. Okay. Is your niyyah that you're going to lead the salah, right? Here they get very very specific, and they say, what if all of us now get up and pray Isha, and all of you have the intention to be the imam? Yeah, what happens then, right? So some of them will say your salah is not valid. Okay, طبعا that wouldn't happen. I don't know if somebody had experienced something like that. That wouldn't happen. We'll look at this right after we finish. So let me just read here what he says. He says, طيب. And then he says here, niyyah specific for an imam or follower should be done respectively. Yeah, so he says that you should do your niyyah for if you're imam or a ma'moom. Imam is the one who's going to lead, and the ma'moom is the one that's going to follow. You cannot change the niyyah after starting the prayer. And this makes sense, example, if follower, then you cannot have others join, right? And so he's saying here that if you are a follower, okay, you cannot have others join you after. And this is problematic. If you're praying Isha and you come in and you're a follower, and then someone comes and joins with you, so is their salah valid as well? And this is some of the masail that are tied with this. You can change fard to nafil, but not the opposite. This makes sense. If you're in a nafil, can you change it to a fard? No. If you're in a fard, you can change it to a nafil, your niyyah. Okay? So if you're praying something like, I don't know, dhuhr, you can change it to a niyyah. We have the hadith of Mu'adh. If you guys know the story, he used to pray, I believe, Salat al-Isha with the Prophet ﷺ, and then he would lead his people. Tamam? He would be the imam. So he would pray that would be fard for him, right? The second one technically is it fard? The second one technically it's nafila for him. The second Isha, he's praying 2 Ishas. How many? He's praying 2 Ishas. For here it's kind of clear that, and the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't do inkar. He didn't stop him and say, don't do that, Mu'adh. And he knew about it. And had it been not acceptable, he would have told him, right? And that's why, مثلا in Jum'ah, the Khatib will pray here, like we'll pray 2 Jum'ahs, right? Technically the second one would be a nafila for the imam, but it will still count for everybody else. Does that make sense? Yeah. That's why sometimes we'll mention some, and actually even the Sharih here, Sheikh Ahmed Al-Qu'aymi, he even he went against the matin, the author, and he said that this is not the madhab. Because here he's going to talk about a follower can leave the jama'ah due to an excuse and pray on own. We talked about this. This happened with Mu'adh as well. Mu'adh, he would make his Isha long sometimes. So a man left the salah, right? And he finished by himself. The Prophet ﷺ didn't tell him to repeat. And then Nabi ﷺ said, أَفَتَّانٌ أَنْتَ? Like, are you trying to cause fitna? And why do you make the salah so long? So they say that you're allowed to leave for an excuse. Yani if we're praying right now, and there is an excuse. What's an excuse? Job interview? No. Well, let's say yani, something urgent has to happen, and the sheikh decided to read Baqarah. You're like, okay, this will only take 2 minutes. Okay, Sheikh Hamza usually reads just half a page. And today I decided to just go on. Khalas. And you're like, I have to be somewhere. Okay, something extremely important. Maybe it's a job interview. Yeah, maybe it is. Okay. And so he will change the niyyah to munfarid. Okay. I'm going to pray on my own. And he will finish the salah and leave. And that should be acceptable. There are some excuses. Yeah, and the person will know. Now, if you're towards the end of the salah, you shouldn't do it. Yani, if you cannot finish before the imam, obviously it doesn't make sense. Obviously, it doesn't make sense. So you should be able to finish before the imam by a good distance. Let me just finish this one. Jamil. He says here, if imam prayer becomes invalid, then so does the followers. This is where it gets a bit problematic. If the imam's prayer becomes invalid, then so does the followers. That means that if the imam is up there and his salah becomes invalid, I don't know, like he found out there's a najasa or he doesn't have wudu. And then he says here that the salah becomes invalid. It's a bit problematic because now all the people's salah is gone. And there's no, Allahu A'lam, there's no clear evidence. Let me just read what the imam says here. He says here, نعم. He says, وَتَبْطُلُ صَلَاتُهُ بِبُطْلَانِ صَلَاةِ إِمَامِهِ لا عكسه إن نوى إمام الانفراد. Yeah, that's why you need a sharh because even the Arabic is difficult. He says وتبطل صلاته ببطلان صلاة إمامه لا عكسه إن نوى إمام الانفراد. Right. So he's saying that. So he's saying that the ma'moom, the one who's following, his salah is gone if the imam breaks his salah, not the opposite. Not the opposite. Okay? And then he says in the footnotes here, he says, no, his salah shouldn't be broken if he breaks his salah. Yani if a munfarid breaks his salah, or imam breaks if imam breaks his salah for a valid reason, like I said, he will bring someone else up, tamam, and he will lead the salah, and the salah will continue. And like I said, we have the what happened with Umar radiallahu anhu. It's very clear. His salah did not break everybody's salah, and he woke up after Umar, and he's the Khalifa, and he's a faqih. He's from the fuqaha of the Sahaba. And did they finish the salah? He said. They said yes. Okay. So the salah counted. Tamam. Here in these situations, the person should if the imam breaks his salah, someone else can cover for him, and it should be fine. It says here, if imam changes his intention from imam to follower or individual, it invalidates his prayer and the followers. And even this, this is a strange opinion. Why? Because that wouldn't happen. Imam is leading the salah, and then all of a sudden he's like, I'm going to be an individual person. And nobody will know. How will you know his intention changed? You're not mas'ul for that. طيب. What if the imam saha? He's like somewhere else, he's not focusing. Is that going to affect your salah? It shouldn't. But that's why we should always make sure that the one who's leading the salah, he's fit for the position. That he knows the niyyah, he knows the shurut, right? So someone who he doesn't know the shurut of salah should not be leading the prayer. If someone doesn't know the shurut of salah, then he should not lead the prayer. Tamam. So those are 6. Alhamdulillah, we finished right at the adhan. So having ritual purity, tahara, the entry of time, covering the awrah, avoiding najasa, facing the qibla, and those are the shurut. Those are the things you have to have before you pray Isha right now. So make sure you have them right now. We're going to do the adhan, inshallah, and pray. We'll pray right away, inshallah, bi'idhnillah. Wallahu ta'ala. Inshallah, next week we will be covering the description of the salah. And the fuqaha say this is one of the most important abwab in fiqh, the description of the salah. So inshallah, hope to see you all there. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.